It's William. I don't hear you. You're muted.
Oh, stop.
There you go.
Who muted me? They said, don't you say that. The left, the radical
right.
Left
What did you say that we didn't hear?
I went. It was the
the music
vibe coming in. Yeah, it kind of gets you. Yeah. So I went to a Latino based restaurant last night. And so like the music, every song was the same. It was like boom, diddy boom, diddy boom, diddy boom, diddy boom, diddy boom, and then it was another song, and it was like boom, diddy boom. I'm like,
yep,
yeah, oh, no, wait a minute, we record on YouTube. I would be like, no, they're doing the capital R word. We are assuming Jacqueline Edwards. What's going on? Let's slide these people in and get them in the show.
Yeah, Mom should.
Good to see you, girl. Come on, Mom, Bonnie. Better get in here. We don't have all day.
If she's come back to Bible every morning. So mom was on hiatus for a while, and she came back. And if she doesn't get the notifications in her, whatever it is on her phone, she forgets about it. So I don't know if she's. Oh, there she is. Boom. All right, she found us.
Yeah, but boom, Bonnie Creighton, she's in here. There she is. Guess what? I forgot to be in here too, so we're not going to call anybody names because I've been a little absent-minded myself.
It's all right. We have busy lives.
I am digging the hair. I'm digging your hair. I see it's getting a little long on us there. Take that hat off and let's take a look at that. I want to see that. I want to envy your awesome hairline. Oh, okay. It's doing kind of like mine. Yeah, but it's cool. We're rocking it. That's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it happens. It's okay. It's all right. Look, we're all working what we got here, guys. You know what I'm saying? I'm 42. I turned 42 in like 6 days, guys. My birthday's August 6th. My wife's birthday was yesterday. Our anniversary is on the 15th. It's all repacked it all right in there. So if I forget something, I'm an a-hole.
So right. So you're in August.
You forget the birthday and anniversary at the same time?
Well, yeah. My wife's birthday is 10 days before mine.
Yeah, that explains
my mom's birthday is 5 days before mine, right? So I got wife, me, my birthday. So we have ours bunched up as well. Important. Are you there?
Mm-hmm.
Are you reading the comments?
Yeah, I'm here.
No. Can you see the comments?
We're just having an internet glitch.
Oh.
Yes.
I'm rotoing.
Yes. Your internet's wonky. You're having a little internet issue. Yeah. Well,
dude, you're saying turn it over to you
in a consecutive manner like that. Yeah. Well, we're just killing a little time. Do you ever see the Seinfeld episode with George Costanza when he says, every day it's a birthday, it's such and such day, it's Christmas, talking about how to buy gifts. You know what I'm talking about?
Yes. Costanza.
Yeah.
Am I rotoing still?
Bonnie, yes, we are blurry. We are blurry, Bonnie.
All right. Well, William, can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Yes?
Yeah.
You can hear me?
Go ahead.
Okay.
I can hear you.
I'm going to, because usually your internet is better than mine. So I'm going to turn it over to you. What are we talking about?
There's actually what we're talking about is a smidgen of a slice off to the edge of a thing called a collective conscious. And what we're going to do is we are attempting to turn a huge ship around with a small oar at the very back. I'm holding it. This is a 75-foot yacht. I've got a little bitty teeny weeny paddle behind it, and I'm trying to steer this ship back the other way. That's and in a generality of things, there's certain ways to go about doing this. Now, you can approach this in a kinetic manner and cause a whole bunch of ruckus and completely misguided points that can make things better as you move along. In other words, jump too far ahead and do something stupid like some of these people want us to do, which is kinetic. People get uproar and, or we can use, or that's an ironic word because I'm using one of those. We can use the apparatuses at hand that's been given to us by God, which is the ability to speak freely as much as possible. And then when you allow people the ability to make their own decisions on the collective consciousness, then you have somebody on your side for life, because they came there all themselves. So how do we do this? We've got to go through certain ways and venues. Now, we know that money drives a lot of things. If you take a whole bunch of money and throw it at something, typically something happens, good or bad, whatever that might be. Now, you've got businesses and organizations that have grown quite substantially over the years because of a thing called capitalism, which is great as long as it's able to be, used in a free manner. Like, I should be able to capitalize just as much as Bud Light does, or Target, or Walmart, or whatever. And so, today we're going to talk about boycotts and how powerful they can be, because of the fact that you do a thing, you take the money out of the hands of the people who are doing the wrong against you. Because the money that you spend on these products isn't so that they can, yes, they buy nice yachts, but they use those yachts so they can invite all their other people to talk about how they can do bad stuff to us. It's like buying crack from a crack dealer. You get mad because he rolls up on rims, but then you still buy that stuff and hand him the money, and he's like, "Look at it rolling in that Cadillac with rims on it." Well, you did that. All you had to do was not buy that stuff, and he wouldn't have any money, and he wouldn't be complaining about it. So basically, boycotts are very popular, and that's where we're at right now. What do you think about the recent boycotts and how that spun a voice for us conservatives?
Well, it's a perfect that you mentioned that. I was listening to or watching a video yesterday that was from like 2 years ago. It was Charlie Kirk was a guest on Tim Pool, and I forget the guy that he was debating, but it was a leftist that had the bravery to come on Tim Pool's show. And so this was a little excerpt from it. And one of the things that this leftist guy was saying about ESG and DIE or DEI, right? All of the diversity, equity, and inclusion, and the ESG is the I guess the legally enforceable version of that. It's like companies, our federal government is saying you have to, institute, you have to have these hiring practices, you have to, you have to discriminate in favor of certain people and ideologies. Essentially, your business has to. But this was 2 years ago, and this guy was saying, the reason these businesses are going in that direction, this was 2 years ago. This is how fast the truth comes out, right, in our cycle now. He says the reason they're doing that is because there's demand for it. These companies are being wise, and they're smartening up and seeing the trends, and so they're hiring these experts in these positions, and they're going in this direction because it's a smart business decision. And now we realize no, it's not. They were doing that because the government was essentially about to start cracking down on them. And so they were not doing it out of natural business practice. They were not putting their finger up to the winds of the culture and saying, this is where the future is. They were doing it because there was a cruel whip over their head, forcing them to do it. When you follow the natural inclinations of human society, you go in one direction. If you have a government regulation on you, you go in a different direction. And now we know businesses are getting rid of all that stuff and they're moving in the opposite direction because money talks, right? People vote with their money. It's the power of the purse. And when a business does something contrary to what the good people of the United States of America want, they suffer the consequences. They feel. And it was interesting to watch this video because the video had just been posted because there was some other guy commenting on it, and it was from 2 years ago, and it was glaring. And the guy who was commenting on it, pointed out that difference. It's like only 2 years ago you could make that argument from the left, whereas now, today, after Bud Light, after Target, after all of these, after Disney collapsing, right now, that argument doesn't fly. Even from the left, they recognize it doesn't fly.
Yeah. So to me, what we're looking at is a domestic form of sanctions. If you think about it. Well, I mean, the only reason why I'm saying domestic because of the fact that it's happening on our soil, but it's happening in other countries as well. So we'll just since the left loves to group things in and itemize things and single things out, make things look way individual instead of just kind of like everybody get along, we'll just call it a local or a local like sanction, in other words, because Obama, whenever they wanted to push men and men getting married and all that stuff, he actually threw sanctions on countries like Africa and other places with their food supply and other things to make them go in that direction. Well, ESG scores tend to have the same effect, because what happens is you've got people that are running a thing called a globalist agenda by the World Economic Forum and other entities. We say World Economic Forum, but you got to remember that there's key players that don't even say who they are, because they don't want to know who they are, because then it sheds a light. But like BlackRock and other vanguard industries that kind of run banks and control things, especially JP Morgan and all those crazy people, they're actually making it where banks won't loan money out to oil companies. They won't loan money out to other people to make things happen. Better yet, if you get extreme enough, they will debank you. They will take and make it very difficult for you to recover your funds that are in the bank because of certain reasons. That, well, this is under investigation now because you're this, that, and other, and that causes a really that's a fear tactic amongst rich people and elites that run things. So they move in that direction so that they're protected, because it's not a financial gain. Garth Brooks figured that out pretty quick. Garth Brooks said, whoever come in my bar, they're going to drink that Bud Light, they're going to like it. And everybody's like, your bar isn't going to happen, buddy. And then all the investors backed out, because I went on Twitter and I blocked Garth Brooks. I didn't even follow him. I did a thing and I posted a thing. Let's everybody block Garth Brooks. I don't know how many people did it. They got on there and didn't even follow him and just blocked him anyways. I bet you looked at it and was like, yeah, or his PR guy. But these ESG scores are very basic.
Well, we live in a time where, I say 30 years ago, there was ABC, NBC, and CBS, right? It was, and then these new up and comers like Fox and CNN. So back in a day when information was funneled down, into very, very few sources. You got a few print sources and a few, media or television sources. We don't live in that day anymore where the narrative can be controlled and people, don't have access. Now at the tip of our fingers, we can search and find whatever supplier we want, right? We don't have limited choices.
You made it here.
Right. And so that's it's an economic revolution, right? You have people starting businesses that couldn't have started them 20 years ago, 30 years ago, because like you or some random person could have a consulting service and live in Montana in the woods. As long as they have an internet connection, they can start a thriving business from wherever and not be constrained. And so I say that to say there's a what Steve Turley refers to often as the parallel polis or the parallel economy, right? There's the official sanctioned by the mainstream media or the authoritarian dictators of the elites. This is the official narrative, and then you've got everybody else doing whatever they want because we're not beholden to them anymore. They're losing their hold on power, and so there are businesses that are taking advantage of that, patriot businesses, and we can find them, and they're rising up. Have you, what's it called? There's this one business, is it Square? What's it called? Something that they just went public or on the stock market. Maybe you didn't follow this. I can't remember what it's called.
It's a way to move money around.
Yeah. I forget what it's called.
Trade,
Squarespace,
something like that.
Squarespace or something. Yeah. And it was like they went public.
Which help us out in the comment section.
yeah. If anybody knows what we're talking about, I think it's called, I forget what it's called, but just in the last week or two, it's this conservative business that went public, which means they, sold stock on the stock market for the first time. And when that happens, they go to Wall Street and they stand up there and they do whatever. And it outperformed, right? It just skyrocketed, beyond what people expected. And it's similar to, for example, while we're talking about the parallel culture, the parallel economy, Sound of Freedom, right? Sound of Freedom is an example of there's a normal way that the established culture says you can do it. You have to make movies that talk about this kind of stuff. You have to go through this system. You have to go through the studio, blah, blah, blah. You have to market it a certain way. And that's how it's done. But then there are people outside of that system that are familiar with that system and like, we know how to make good movies, and we know how to get our movie into theaters, one theater per theater, one in the multiplex where you have 18 to 25 theaters. Sound of Freedom was able to get at least one in those things, and that movie outperforms expectations, right? That is the parallel economy. That's the parallel culture that the authoritarians have no control over, right? They are losing control, and that's only going to it's only on the increase, right? We feel like, oh, things are so bad. It's like, no, actually things are good and getting better.
Yeah.
Bad news will continue, will always be there. Go ahead.
You mentioned the Sound of Freedom, and I want to touch on something because it's been talked about a little bit, but I want to debunk a little bit of what happened with one of the donors or financiers of that movie. It came out in the news that it was charged with human trafficking or something along the lines of those charges. By the way, that financier donated $500. You can look up that. You can look that up. It was only $500. He was a landlord. And he owned some property, and there was a police wanted to go in that home, and he said you have to have a warrant to do so. And what ended up happening was they spun this into a scenario where he was saying that you couldn't enter the home, the people were in there, this, that, and the other, where these people were being supposedly held against their will, but totally not. He was actually following a constitutional right of search and seizure, that you need to have a search warrant. And so what they did is, and I'm sure this was like an easy path for them to take so that they could have some sort of talking point, but that whole thing is completely debunked. That guy was nowhere near any kind of human trafficker or a financier. $500. That'd be like me during like $30, and then something happened domestically out of some weird stuff. I punched some guy because he's standing in the road because he won't be driving my truck because it burns on gas, and they're going to say that I'm some kind of something, and he's a financier. I was like, no, I gave $30, man. Financier of Trump's campaign. I bought one of those gold $100 bills for $10. Yeah, I financed the campaign.
Isn't it? Isn't it interesting how the movie Sound of Freedom? By the way, if you haven't seen it, go see it. It's still in theaters. Last weekend I still saw it. I mean, I've seen it already, but I saw that it was still in theaters. It's so telling. Well, it's baffling actually that anybody would attack that film. Anybody
anybody attacks that film, you better look at get on their social media. So find the computer under the bed and look at what's going on with that. You look into those people.
Right. So it's like this litmus test of you could literally walk up to anybody and say, so what's your take on Sound of Freedom, and just let them talk. They either don't know or they're going to take a side on it. And it's just this litmus test. You could absolutely tell, like, okay, this person hasn't seen it, doesn't know anything about it, and they only listen to this type of media, right? And so it's just, if you go into that movie, there's no politics, period, none. Right? It's not a political film at all. It's rescuing it's the worst thing happening to humans on the planet right now, and good people going and rescuing them. Right? That's what the movie's about. But anybody who attacks that film is being duped by an agenda.
I think that people that have heard of the movie but haven't seen it, or even some of the people that have seen it, don't fathom the nefarious activities that are good. They can't believe that this actually real. When this is all really not based on a true story. They pretty much said, okay, and I had to go rescue these kids. This, and this happened. And they reenacted that darn near to a T. You know what I'm saying? They didn't actually add anything to the story. They didn't take away. They probably had to take some away so people could actually watch it. They didn't actually could tell the whole story. So when people see this and they go, you mean no, yes, these people are doing that, and they thrive off of that. And the industries that they get involved in have their own ESG scores to protect that situation. So the reason why you see so many people running cover for that is because it's the same people that own those companies, like the media corporations, big businesses that are behind the scenes helping that operation take place. So that means that the news reporters and the producers and all these other things take the higher up orders and do what's said to be told to be done, and they shield for these people because they have their own ESG scores, like losing their job and their don't want to lose the Bugatti, don't want to let that thing go. What bothers me is like just local radio stations. Okay, they have been bought out since it came from, I hate to say it, California kind of started this with Cumulus and other industries that bought out local radio stations so that they could syndicate them, and they run off automation and they use satellite uplink so that there's just one dude in the middle of a room and he's playing all the songs that you're allowed to hear, and the DJ that you hear is all pre-recorded and it's approved by a higher up, and then next thing you know, it's all brought to you by PHI. You know what I'm talking about? So what happened is it took the local voice away from your local DJ, because your DJ lives in the area. If you lived in a certain county in a state, and you live there, you work there as that radio announcer, you actually kind of have a climate of the area that you're in, which then gives you a local voice, which kind of helps people understand what's going on. Even if you're just going to bring in a song like, hey, Bob Seger's Turn the Page, but by the way, did you know this happened in Greensboro where people are such and such and such? And they can't do that anymore. They cannot do that anymore. That's totally been silenced. And what gets me is there's people that thrive and shield to go work for these people. Like, I'm gonna go to college. I want to be a radio announcer. I want to be chained down. I want my mouth to be wired shut, and I want to receive a paycheck for it. That's what bothers me. And I'm sitting there thinking, you're taking apart. Well, everybody's doing that. Yeah, because everybody said everybody's doing that. Stop doing it. Boycott that. Don't go work for these companies. Get on your ham radio and start playing music, and I'll listen, because I know it's not coming from some super awful organization who's helping to move kids from gosh knows where to everywhere,
Yeah, I want to get back to what you're talking about. One of those slanders, and I don't know when it happened. I don't know when that, because we only have so much bandwidth to consume so much content. So I missed it, but I did read about it that somebody was saying, this one contributor, because Sound of Freedom was crowdfunded. I'm sure there was some large initial investment, et cetera, but they did a crowdfunding campaign, which is why it's been so successful as well. And so some guy, like you said, that gave, a couple $100 to it was like $20 million budget or something like that for the film, like $15 to $20 million budget. And so somebody gives $500, and then that guy gets caught up, by circumstance in a, somebody had kidnapped. I think it was a parent had kidnapped the non-custodial parent or something, had kidnapped their own children or something like that. And the police are showing up to the apartment complex. And the guy who contributed just happened to own the apartment complex. And so they say he was aiding and abetting child trafficking or something like that, right? The spin. But no, what he was actually doing was protecting himself and the police from breaking the law. Right. He was literally protecting. He's like, you can't go in there because you're supposed to have a search warrant. This is a patriotic citizen saying, and they're protecting the police from lawsuits against the police, because if they do go in without a search warrant, they're subject, and protecting himself from allowing criminal activity. So, all right. So
it wouldn't have been hard at all for them to go get a warrant and then go in there and call it a day, because that's what they're supposed to do.
That's
what they're supposed
to do. And it was all resolved, as far as I understand. This was all resolved properly. Anyway, there's this, I forget who said, there's a book that I'm not going to even try to remember the name of the book or who said it, but there's this idea or this reality that we exist in right now, that every single one of us could be convicted of a federal crime, at least 3 federal crimes at any time. Every single one of us legally and legitimately could be convicted of federal crime at any time because of the bureaucratic state, right? There's so many laws on the books, and even laws that conflict with each other. There are laws that have been passed that conflict with previous laws that, it's just too cumbersome of a system to get rid of all the laws that no longer apply. They just keep passing new laws. And so there are so many laws on the books that you and I are guilty of, but are not enforced because they know they're obsolete laws. But if the federal government wanted to, if for some reason they said William Archibald is a real threat to our agenda, they could literally go on the books and find something to convict you of that you're actually quote unquote guilty of. Even that's why they're going to these more than 100-year-old laws to try and get Trump. These are certain laws that have never been applied or have never. It's been over 100 years. They're like obsolete laws. That's why you see them like this is on the books. Let's get them for that. This is on the books. Let's get them for that. Things that nobody's ever been prosecuted for in the last 50 to 100 years. And so it's, the administrative state has power that they misuse. But the good news is there's too much of us. There's too many of us for them to squash us, right? Like Christianity, it's every time it's targeted and they attempt to crush it and snuff it out. What happens? It just spreads.
It grows. It gets just, like they tried to snuff TNAPL out, and then here I pop up. You're like, he was right. Like, oh, they're about to take my YouTube channel. I need somebody to back me up. And next sudden, here I come, and then here come a whole bunch of other people, and they got more behind me. By the way, there's a lot more going on behind the scenes that people don't even know about. There is stuff going on, and so yes, you try to snuff that out, and I think that they're trying to do this whole thing where they pull it up by the roots. Just go for the people under 100-year-old laws, because that's the only way you get a weed to not pop back. You got to get it out by the roots, and they're going to try to do us like that. But guess what? If you try to do that to me, I'm going to squirt some seeds out right before you do that, and it's coming right back up. There's going to be a whole lot more, and it's only going to be stronger because these people are going to see what happened to people like you and me. It's going to galvanize these people, and I see it all the time, and that's where our boycotts come in. Who would have thought that a Bud Light boycott would have caused so much hysteria? And, they were like, we'll recover from this. It's okay. These people will forget so fast. It's so, by the way, Disney boycotted the Sound of Freedom movie for 2 years, would not let it come out. And guess what? It was the best thing in the world for the movie because it came out at the right time. If it had came out 2 years ago, it probably wouldn't have had as much. It would have had plenty of meaning behind it. I'm not taking away from the movie, but just the social climate and the acclamation that people have gotten to at this point because they see the corruption and all the exposure with the Bidens and the laptops and all the stuff. Disney shot themselves in the foot by doing such a thing. And then after it got released by independent people, they didn't make any money off of it. Nah, boo-boo, stick your head in doo-doo.
You know what? Obviously, I don't know all the details behind that, but I guarantee you, there were some people at Disney that knew the film that were like, there's no way this is a Disney. We cannot release this. Is, like there are, the wicked that are like, we can't release this film. This is terrible. And then there were people at Disney going, I can't believe, God has called me to Disney for this. I want to protect this film. I want to get this film made, get this film distributed. There's Christians that work at Disney, right? Remember, it's not Disney is this monolith, right? So there are good people on the inside. Mm-hmm. So I guarantee there were people that were heartbroken at Disney that Disney was trying to suppress this and put away, but it was all God. Right? It was God's timing, like you said. It's about the timing, and it was all God. And also, I do want to mention Public Square is the app that we're talking about. Public Square, so Public Square is this one, patriot business that is thriving, and there are others that, if you're boycotting or you want the alternative, where you don't want to go through the media endorsed route. Is it? I think you sent me an article. There's an article, Patriot. There's a company that, I know Steve Turley talks about one called Red Balloon, where it's like, if you are a patriot and you're looking for any kind of business, any kind of patriot run business, rather than just going on Craigslist or going Google searching, go to Red Balloon. And there's another one, and I think it was in an article you sent or an article that Gina sent me.
Well, don't forget about Michael Lindell. He's still selling stuff. I mean, we're not a sponsor for any of his stuff, but he's a patriot. He's actually done a lot of work, and he put a lot of himself out there and got scrutinized and blasphemized and ostracized. That's a lot of sized in there, but it happened to him. And we need to support that effort because I don't know who this guy is or what his real story is, but I have a feeling he's more than just some pillow guy. Do you ever get that at all about the Lindell dude?
Yeah, God's using him. Definitely. Like he's unflappable, and that frustrates the left. All right, we're out of time already. So love you.
Yeah, we are. Time sucks.
I got to get to work.
We
Good to
got to
see
shout
you.
out these people right quick. We're going to eat up a little time. Kathy, thank you for that. Bonnie, Jacqueline, and everybody else out there. Thank you so much. Thank you, Michael, for having me. Lots of fun and big old hugs. Big hugs to everybody.